So this morning we do have a special treat. Phyllis Schlesinger is here from her home in Dover to share words of Torah, and I was privileged to study alongside her and many others on Zoom this summer as we studied the words and teachings of Abraham Joshua Heschel and as we prepared for the High Holy Days. And so I am grateful for her words of Torah to help us frame our reading this morning. Phyllis, please.
Thank you. When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good. Everyone knows the first lines of Genesis. When God created heaven and earth, it's the start of the spiritual world as we've known it, even though we accept the scientific explanation that the earth was formed from a big bang. We read the verses and see that out of chaos came light, earth, water, animals, plants, and people, and we read that it was good. Hearing those words every year, either at Rosh Hashanah or at Simchat Torah, enabled past generations to know that there was an order to the world. The sun would rise, the sun would set, the seasons would change, and it was all good for the most part. Since the time of creation, every generation has experienced some form of chaos. The Jewish people have endured slavery, persecution, discrimination, pogroms, the Shoah, and wars. The United States was born out of chaos. History gives us all the details of the revolution, a nation born with slavery, then a civil war, emancipation, Reconstruction, suffragist movement, the civil rights movement, anti-war protests, and more. I grew up in the midst of some of this chaos. As a very young child in Atlanta in the 50s, I witnessed the civil rights movement develop. My family moved to the area from the north when I was about 5. Kids threw pine cones at my brother and me because we were Yankees, and worse, Jews. I saw the KKK march in full regalia. I saw Jim Crow in action with segregation on buses, on buildings, and in parks. I saw the future governor of the state hand out axe handles for people to use to beat peaceful protesters. I remember the day the Temple, Atlanta's premier reform congregation, was bombed. However, I also witnessed religious leaders of different faiths marching together for justice and peace. Too young to participate myself, I saw my parents work diligently to help to make a better world. Out of that chaos came the Great Society and the beginnings of equality of opportunity. Out of the personal chaos came a recognition that I had to fight injustice and stand up against inequality. I was proud to be Jewish, and this was good. We find ourselves in a new kind of chaos now. It's Corona chaos. The world that we knew, that we were comfortable in despite its many faults, the world that was good is gone. Coronavirus has changed everything. It has caused us to question our safety, and many are afraid to leave their homes. We see clerks in the grocery store more than we see our closest friends and families. It has highlighted the economic and technological inequalities in our state, our country, and the world. It has deprived us of the fullness of our sacred rituals where we celebrate events in large gatherings and where we grieve with our communities. Our cities, once centers of liveliness and culture, seem deserted. It has deepened the already deep ideological divisions between us. There are those who wear masks and practice social distancing, and there are those who think that wearing masks is a violation of their freedom and that the whole thing is a hoax. Jobs have been lost, the economy is in a downfall, and people are suffering. Over 200,000 people in the United States have died, often alone, creating more chaos for many families. It has even caused us to be apart on these most important days of our Jewish year. We could decide to drown in this chaos. We could decide that it's terrible that the world as we know it has changed forever. I want to urge us to take a new look at where we are. I know I'm an eternal optimist. My parents raised me to find good in the world. My in-laws, both survivors, taught me that every day is a gift to use for good. So I challenge us to find some good in the experiences of the last few months. We read in the creation story that we are made in God's image. God created this world and us, and as God's creations, we are partners with God in caring for and reinventing the world when it needs reinvention. Rabbi Sharon Cohen Anisfeld says that not only do we need God, but that God also needs us. There are times, like now, when God calls out to us for help in repairing this world. Rabbi Anisfeld says, and I paraphrase, that perhaps God is the more within us, that when we are running dry or are afraid, there is always that little more that we can find. We can use that more for strength to carry on. Together, perhaps we can use it to find ways out of the chaos and as an opportunity to create again, to evolve and grow. Can we our best, be godlike, so to speak, in this new way of living? Can we overcome the frustration that many of us feel with government mismanagement and lying about this crisis? It's a new year with new opportunities, so let's see what we've accomplished so far. We have found strength in our families and communities, even if virtually. We value time spent with our friends and colleagues, despite Zoom fatigue. We have discovered nature, and for some, the joy of harvesting homegrown vegetables and raising chickens. We have shown our appreciation for the essential people in our lives, although we still have to show that we truly value them economically. We have found new ways of working. Work from home has become a way of life for many people. While boundaries between work and home are tricky to manage, I see in my work that there are at least some leaders who are aware of this and are sensitive to the needs of employees and colleagues. We have reinvented the ways we learn. Educators have worked hard together to reconceptualize school, whether it's virtual or on-site. There will be bumps along the way, I know, but I'm sure we can remake learning so that even more people can benefit from it. Here at TBE, we have increased the numbers of people participating in our events and Shabbat services, and look at the wonderful creativity in our high holiday worship. So let us find strength in ourselves, truly to be God's partners in creation, and make a world where we see God's image in everyone, despite our differences, where we value our environment, those plants and animals and sea creatures, and advocate for it, where we are grateful for friends and families and show them our love, where we acknowledge and thank those whom we have often taken for granted in the past, from the clerk at the supermarket to the person who harvests our food, where we are proactive and look to do what we can do to perform Tikkun Olam, even virtually, and where we open our hearts to God's unseen ways and think of the power of the possibilities that we have ahead. Let God and us look on it and see that it is good.
Phyllis, thank you so much for your words of Torah, for your support for our community, and for sharing parts of your personal story as well. I can't believe I've been a part of it for 26 years now, and I'm just so grateful. It was good to see now your grandchildren in our parking lot yesterday, hearing the sound of the shofar. So with great gratitude, Yasher Koach, to many more years, and to new beginnings as well. So for our first Aliyah,